Trigger warning for graphic content and just genuinely a very distressing story because I'm going to talk about the Jonestown massacre. Many people were concerned about the safety of Senator Chris Van Hollen when he went to El Salvador to check on his constituent Kilmar Abreu Garcia. And a lot of people thought that that was overreaching, it was overreacting, because what could possibly happen to a congressman in a foreign country? And I would like to bring you the story of Congressman Leo Ryan. Congressman Leo Ryan was a member of the House of Representatives, the 11th District of California. He's a Democrat, and he was known for using interesting tactics to bring about education and awareness of specific issues. Like, for instance, one time he landed himself in prison for 10 days because he wanted to understand what the conditions were for the inmates. Many might say that this is actually a very appropriate thing for Congress people to do in order to understand what their constituents, the issues that their constituents are facing. And so when Representative Leo Ryan began having some of his constituents contact him about their family members that had gone missing or hadn't reported back because they had followed a pastor to Guyana, as more and more of those reports amassed, he became concerned. The Reverend Jim Jones, the leader of the People's Temple, which has now come to be probably one of the most infamous cults, previously was based in San Francisco and had about 20,000 followers. So no doubt Representative Leo Ryan was familiar with him and had constituents that were either a part of his following or knew people that were a part of the following and went with him to Guyana. So Representative Ryan secured an official delegation visit, which was not easy at all because Reverend Jim Jones didn't want him in the press there. Obviously, there were all these allegations of abuse and bad things happening. He didn't want the press anywhere near that. So here comes Congressman Leo Ryan with 22 other people. They had press, they had camera people, they had congressional aides, everybody was going. They show up to the compound in Jonestown, Guyana. They show up and everybody's happy because of course they are, because Reverend Jim Jones has orchestrated that. He has staged everything so that it looks, of course, above board to the journalists that are visiting, to the congressman that's visiting. Much like I'm sure the president of El Salvador did when they set up the meeting between Kilmar Abreu Garcia and Senator Chris Van Hollen. Sorry, you're not going to convince me otherwise. That's what authoritarian leaders do. But I regress, because of course I regress. I meant to say digress, but regression feels right in 2025. Unfortunately, for everybody involved, because obviously this ends up being a huge tragedy, because they were there so long, they couldn't keep up with the facade. The People's Temple could not convince the press that everything was fine. Partially because they had actual followers slipping them notes, telling them that everything that they had heard was true, all the accounts of abuse. It was bad. So much so that Congressman Leo Ryan realizes that, oh my God, I'm going to need a bigger plane. He's like, I'm going to stay back with these people until they can get evacuated. At the time, the People's Temple had said, yeah, cool, okay, we'll get you your passports, we'll get you $5,000 in travel money, and they were basically like, you can go, it's cool. It was, in fact, not cool. Just before part of his delegation was set to return back to the States, one of the fanatical Jim Jones followers grabbed onto Congressman Leo Ryan and had a knife at his throat, and two of the temple lawyers and someone else, they wrestled it away from him. It was very dramatic. And this is supposedly him after that. You can see that there's blood on him from the assailant. And at this point, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna actually have to go. I will not be staying behind. And so they travel back to the Port Kaituma airstrip. It's a really remote airstrip, and there's two small planes that are going to take this delegation of people back, and there's a few defectors that are coming with them. And one of those people was the brother of a woman that had formerly defected, and he was wearing a poncho, and basically it appeared that he was hiding a weapon, but he'd been frisked a couple times, and he was a shady character because when a carload of people showed up and started shooting, he did too. It's an open airfield. You can see here are the documented photos from it. So a lot of people ran out into the brush in the neighboring river. Some people took cover behind the wheels. That's what Representative Spear did, who at the time was a congressional aide to Leo Ryan. She did survive. Congressman Leo Ryan was shot and killed. In addition to that was Examiner photographer Greg Robinson. NBC newsman Don Harris and Bob Brown both were killed. A temple defector named Patricia Parks was killed, and 11 others were severely wounded. And they waited for like 22 hours. They were basically smuggled into civilian residences where they were kept hold until someone could come get them and give them medical assistance and transport them back to the US. So like for 22 hours, they didn't know if these Jim Jones people were coming back to hurt them, kill them. You probably know that tale. They did not come to get them because immediately after the shooting, there was a mass murder that was committed because Jim Jones convinced everyone to take cyanide and poison themselves. I think the total was 900 people that were killed. This is also where the phrase drink the Kool-Aid comes from and why you shouldn't use it because it's in bad taste. Obviously, Jim Jones disproportionately hurt Black people because he traveled to their native country of Guyana and he just absolutely preyed on the members of that community. So as it turns out, this politician, Representative Leo Ryan, who absolutely knew that there was something hinky going on. He knew that there was something diabolical about this cult leader that at the time was not considered a cult leader. It was just like, this pastor, this reverend, this person of the church. And he knew, so he went to go investigate. He went to go save the lives of his constituents, and he paid for it with his own life. And that is the story of how a member of Congress, the only member of Congress to be assassinated while in his role as a congressman, traveled to a foreign country to try to save constituents and instead was killed. So that's why people were concerned for Senator Chris Van Hollen, because you can't trust authoritarian leaders because they do things like this.